Welcome to the Outsourcing Blueprint, where scaling your business gets smarter, not harder. Hosted by Scott Smith, an outsourcing expert with over 20 years of global experience. From India to Alaska to South Africa, Scott's passion for people drives his mission to help you build powerhouse teams created for success. Grab your coffee, your boldest dreams, and your blueprint. It's time to build the business you've always wanted. Let's go.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Outsourcing Blueprint. I'm your host, Scott Smith, and today I'm super excited. We have Ned Arick with us today. Ned, how are you?
I'm doing phenomenal. How are you?
I am better than I probably have the right to be.
Good.
It's
That's
weird.
awesome place to be, man.
Dude, I will take that because, you know, if it allows me to be better than anyone else in the rest of the world, then I think I'm really getting what I deserve.
Yeah, exactly. It's a win, man. So
Ned, I do appreciate you taking time with me today. You are the Chief Revenue Officer at Attyx, right?
I am. Yeah.
Perfect. And how's that going?
Amazing. It's just a really fun gig. My business partner and I started a company called Beam. What is this now? 2021. So 3.5 years ago, we'll call it. We built it out, and little did we know that private equity was booming in the home services space. And 18 months later, here we are getting rolled up into a larger company, and was able to take on the chief revenue officer role of the bigger company, and super blessed. And it's fun. It's such a transactional sale, and everything's quick, everything's moving. One day we're focused on the number of leads. The next day we're focused on conversions. Honestly, that's like every hour. But it's definitely been the funnest gig of my life, just starting a home services company, getting acquired, and now running a $200 million home services company. So
that's magnificent. That feels a little bit like, not only it's more than just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like you recognized a need, found an opportunity, and then when a bigger opportunity came knocking, you were ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, like from my perspective, I come from tech, right? I early on in my career, first sales hire, been the first sales leader hire, done a lot of just building systems, process structure, strategy. And when I decided to leave consulting, and it was technology consulting, when I decided to leave consulting early stage startups and do this, I did what I knew how to do, which was scale a tech startup. And, that's really what we did. We built it exactly like I would have if we were, putting some app together. And I think it was it was awesome because obviously when private equity comes to the table, they're expecting to see systems. They're expecting to see repeatable process, predictable revenue. They're expecting to see these things. And we were able to show that very quickly, and was really lucky to have some really cool guys on our side, really smart guys on our side that knew how to make sure we were profitable, because I came from tech, and profitability back in the day wasn't number one. So they were like, no, we got to make money. So that was cool.
Yeah. And they have a point.
Yeah, I think so. Cash is king. That's what they say. So
cash is king. That's absolutely true. Well, that's awesome. And what a great story. And so I have to take just a step back. So the first company was called what again? Beam?
Beam. Yep.
So what prompted you to get into that? You said you were in tech.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the head of growth at a sales enablement consulting firm. My job was to take any of the companies that either they invested in on their venture capital side, or anyone that needed consulting, and build out the strategy system, staff, and skills for those organizations. And what's wild is I was on path to actually be a managing director at that company. And I was traveling a lot, working a ton, and a buddy of mine called me. His name's Alex Martinson, and he was starting this HVAC solar company in Greensboro, North Carolina. And to give you some perspective, I'm the head of growth at Closed Loop, very successful consulting firm, doing my dream job that like the day that I became an SDR was like, I want to get into consulting and investing and I'm going to work my tail off to go get there. I'm doing it. And I get this call. I'm living in Atlantic Beach, Florida, uh, literally less than a block from the water and loving life. And he calls me up and goes, hey, I'm thinking about starting this thing. Come up, let's have a conversation. You know, I know how to sell, you know how to build businesses. Let's see if there's synergy. And for some reason, I just like got on a plane, flew to Greensboro, North Carolina. And by the time we finished that weekend, I was, putting in my 2 weeks at Closed Loop and telling my entire family, like, we're going to sell everything and move up to Greensboro, North Carolina. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but we're going to do it. And
Here we
here we
go.
are.
Wow. And no regrets. I mean, looking back, you all the right moves.
Yeah. I think the way that we built Beam initially, we didn't necessarily build it to sell, right? We built it because Alex, he and I are very close, but he has definitely been a mentor to me with how to compartmentalize family and work and all of these, things in our lives. And so for me, I did a lot of that move to really build a life on my terms.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times at least in my walk, it was really easy for me to go down a path that maybe wasn't exactly what I was meant to go do, but I was really good at it. I made a lot of money. I did really good things. And it was like, I'm not going to go and try to build a life on my terms because this life on other people's terms is making me a ton of money. I have a lot of the things that I've always wanted in my life. And so when I went to Beam, it really was a matter of, hey, let's be very intentional about how we build this and how we want our families integrated into it and how we want our spiritual walk and our physical health and things of that nature to be ingrained in the business side. And so definitely no regrets. And, selling it was icing on the cake. And, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you just said just kind of prompted me. So, and I am sure this is me manifesting in one way, shape, or form. But a lot of people, Ned, that are going to hear this interview, they're people that, they're trading their time for money and for meeting their immediate need.
Yeah,
And I mean, inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody needs what they
for
need,
sure.
and it's fine. But one of the things that inspires me about you, and I've noticed this in how you post on LinkedIn. And, I mean, I commented on something this morning that you said, like, I'm going to have a whole wall full of Ned quotes, right? Because the things that you post resonate with me. And I don't know if it's because I have a lot of the same attitude about things that you have,
Yeah,
and we see things in the same way. We talked a little bit earlier before we started recording about our perspective on family and the priority in our relationships. And so I feel like we're very aligned. And, when we spoke the first time, I left saying, I was in Florida over the holidays and I decided that manatees were my spirit animal, but now I think that Ned is my new spirit animal, right? So,
yeah.
but so I
I will
love
say
that.
manatees are pretty dope as a spirit animal,
Oh,
though.
dude.
They're
Oh,
real.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a tall order to overcome that,
100%. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no. But I love the focus and I love the things that, that you're talking about. And, you make a choice at one point to do something different, to stop.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to say stop trading time for money because we still do that to an extent. And
for
that's kind
sure.
of an overused,
Yeah. Yeah.
saying, but
That's what the gurus like to say to make you buy their course, right?
right, absolutely. So listen, everybody, when you buy my course,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's
yeah, and I will
important.
say, I'll tell you this is like, it starts with a step.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the biggest thing that I've seen is like, it's really easy, you know, I've had people say this to me before, like, because I've talked about this publicly, like my journey and like self-discovery, right? And that pretty much was that leaving tech was going there. And I've talked about this before, and people have been like, well, it's easy for you to say, like, when you have money to make changes like this. And, it's one of those things to like for me, it was like, you know, I've had the amount of money that I could have left my job since I was 25 years old. I didn't make the change until I was 30, right? Because for a lot of us, if we're making a change or we're, going in a different direction, or heck, if we're still going in the same direction, but we're wanting to get bigger, right? In some aspect of our life, it's like that 100th step, that end goal looks so blurry from the starting line.
Right.
And I think that's what makes it scary because as human beings, we need certainty. So uncertainty is like, I'm going to stay where I'm comfortable. I'm going to stay where I know that I have stability. And what I would say is like anyone listening to this that is going like, kind of feeling that like tugging on their heart of like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I want to get from where I am to where I'm meant to be is just take the first step because when you take the first step, the second step becomes clearer, and then the third step, and then the fourth step. And what I found in my walk is like, once I'm at that second step, I need to take that third step to see what happens. And then I need to take the fourth step, and then the fifth. And then you look back and you're like, well, shoot, I'm at step 120 and look at how awesome everything is. Look at this life that I'm living. Look at my family life, my spiritual walk, my relationship with my kids and my wife and things like that.
Right.
And it's like because you're intentional about the step and the place that you're going, but it's not like this big move. It's like not burn everything, burn the ships. I kind of did. We sold everything, moved to Greensboro, but don't listen to that. Like that was just one step. Like
I mean, there's something to burn the ships, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, you get to step 120 and you look back and you realize, well, I was trying to shoot for step 100 and now I'm even beyond that.
exactly.
Wow. And I couldn't see exactly how I was going to get there. And, that's a big manifestation principle. Don't worry about how you're going to get there,
Yeah.
but just see yourself there, be there and, not to go too Neville Goddard, to go too deep, right? So, but to truly feel what it feels like to be in that spot.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, I don't know if you've heard of him. If you haven't, read every single one of his books 27 times.
Okay.
Um, but Dr. Hardy actually is a close friend of my business partner, Alex Martinson. Got to have conversations with him. He's been amazing, just kind of like in both of our lives. One of his things, he has a book called Be Your Future Self Now. And it's literally all about the science of what you were just talking about. And what I like about Dr. Hardy is he's very practical and tactical with kind of what could seem to some people as woo-woo, right? It's like he's talking about what's in the movie The Secret or the book, right?
Right.
He's talking about that, but he's talking about it from an organizational and behavioral psychological perspective. And it's like it allows for people that would close off to some of that manifestation talk to go, oh, okay, cool. So I just have to like act as if I already have this thing and feel like you're saying the same thing. But I think the way Dr. Hardy does it really well is he talks about setting these impossible goals.
Yeah.
And these goals that really push you out of your comfort zone to the place that you have to act as someone else because the things that you do today, the decisions you're making as you are today would never get you to this place. But if I want to go, 10x where I am today,
Right.
I've got to start to surround myself with different people. I have to start to think differently. I have to start act differently. And it is that be, do, have mentality of like, be the person, do the things, have what that person would get.
Right.
But yeah, any of your listeners that are in that situation and going like, well, dude, like I need a change, just start with be your future self now and then read 10x is easier than 2x. And honestly, that's your playbook.
You know what? I think that is fantastic advice. And so for all 37,000 of you who are listening to this,
There we go.
this is good advice. So I wrote down Alex Martinson's name and Dr. Benjamin Hardy's name. One, because I want to remember them and look them up and make sure that I can really, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. So, all right. So we are the Outsourcing Blueprint podcast, right? So I want to make sure we touch on a couple of important things. And it's fun to me just on a personal level to connect on on the whole manifestation thing, because that's like a thing for me, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about sales. So when I left my corporate job, about a year and a half ago now, I came into realizing that I wanted to get into consulting. I'm an outsourcing consultant. I help people build teams. They don't have to be offshore teams. I'm an India specialist. I spent 3 years living on the ground just outside of New Delhi and working with teams
Yeah.
there, and clear down to Trivandrum and over in Chennai and Mumbai and Pune. And I have a huge passion for it, and I absolutely love it. But it doesn't have to be there or even in a foreign country. Any work that we send to be done to anybody else, we're
Yeah.
outsourcing a task, we're outsourcing a role, we're outsourcing whatever it is that we're
Yeah.
sending. So, how do you see outsourcing fitting into the process of building any kind of a team? I was going to ask about like maybe making a sales team, but it doesn't have to be a sales team. It could be any team. How do you see outsourcing being something that can fit really well into that?
Yeah. I think it really is dependent on honestly like what the goal of that team is, right? And so what I've seen work really well, so just for Attyx specifically, what we outsource,
Yeah.
we outsource a portion of our sales development team. We have SDRs that are actually in India that buy or we buy lists of aged data that they are calling on, and they are then live transferring to our team in the States to set on individuals. And
Yeah.
so the reason that that works so well for us is because for our sales development reps that are either in market on the ground or on our inside sales team, it's very difficult to get someone to want to dial through 1,000 names of people who have never heard of you and never filled out a form, but they have at one point been interested in solar or roofing or getting a new HVAC. And the conversion rates obviously are not, astronomically high. But what it allows us to do is get more work done with, not to sound like our guys are ungrateful, but with people that are grateful for the opportunity every single day to come in and do hard things. And so I think that what I found is that where it's worked really well on the sales front is really outsourcing, the hard tasks as much as that sounds like, our SDRs do hard things, but they don't want to sit on the phone and not get pickups all day, right? They don't want to talk to people that are like, F
Absolutely.
off. Like,
Right.
so we outsource that. We also outsource another portion of our sales development team where we actually dial the data that is 30 plus days old, right? We've got a lot of marketing automation and stuff that goes on in the background, but we
Sure.
actually outsource a team. That team is actually in the States, but they're a remote team
Yeah.
that isn't part of our company that actually dials that data specifically. Same deal. The reason that I look at it that way from what is the goal of the actual department in which you're building is because when it comes to our customer service, we're not outsourcing harder things to our outsourced customer service team. For us, it's so we can have 24/7 access. People can have 24/7 access to us, right?
Yeah.
Our emergency hotline for our HVAC is outsourced, right? If it's post hours, when we are getting tier 3 is what we call it, customer service, that doesn't necessarily need as much hand holding, we're outsourcing that, right? And so I think there's different pieces in an organization that it makes sense to outsource. And I think looking at what is the goal that you want to achieve, what is the outcome that you want to have, and from there, a lot of times what you find is if it is, hey, we have guys that don't necessarily want to do this, or we have things that, we don't necessarily need to have people in Lehigh, Utah, 24/7 in the office to pick up phones, when someone's AC goes out at 2 a.m. in North Carolina. It just allows us to, really develop and create an organization that has it covers everything. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed about outsourcing. And, we outsource content creation, we outsource, a lot of things, because when we look at the end goal, it's like, cool, we've got a smaller, leaner team. We need, people that are helping us out with some of this content, web development, things of that nature, because it allows us to get more things done.
You know what? You said there were like 400 nuggets in everything you just said, and I appreciate that. It's going to make the show notes really robust, right? From an outsourcing perspective, because there's so much there, right? You talked about a team of people that love coming in and doing what they do. They're grateful to be able to come in and do that hard stuff, and they're learning and they're growing and they're developing and they're having an opportunity to have an impact
Yeah.
on your business, on theirs, and for their employer. You talked about outsourcing a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So again, to everybody, anything that you're not doing yourself that you're paying somebody else to do. So in the simplest terms, right? You go to a drive-through, you go to a fast food restaurant, you're not making dinner yourself, you're outsourcing your dinner to somebody else. So
Yeah.
we don't have to overcomplicate it, right?
Yeah.
But so much in business is about creating bandwidth and capacity, and you addressed that. And it's important that we are willing to learn and to tackle those things that are particularly or can be particularly challenging.
Yeah.
And maybe it makes sense to allow our best, strongest resources to focus on those things that are the most difficult, not like the most work intensive,
Yeah.
but that require the most focus and the most effort, and then outsource the things that we can to try to free up bandwidth to be able to leave ourselves able to tackle those tasks.
Yeah. I tell everyone on my team that my job is very, very simple. My job is to put you in the best possible position to be successful. And so whether that be our marketing team, sales team, customer success team, I do run our outsourced teams as well. And, thank God I've got managers, but I manage that.
Yeah.
It's what it is my main goal for, our in-house sales development team is to put them in front of people that can buy our stuff.
Yep.
Right? Plain and simple. My job for the AEs is to have the SDRs trained well enough to put them in homes with people that can buy our stuff. For our customer success team, it is making sure that they have the systems, process, structure in place so that they are giving an exceptional onboarding experience, right? Marketing, same thing. With our outsourced teams, the way that I look at it is my job is to put you all in the best possible position to be successful, which means doing the things that necessarily are AEs, it's not putting them in the best possible position to be successful. And so it creates that bandwidth and that leverage and that time where I know for a fact my AEs, when they talk to a lead that has been set by one of our outsourced sales development reps, I know that is going to be a great opportunity for them because I know that they've sifted through a bunch of crap to get to that gold nugget. And I think that's like our 22-year-old sales development rep sitting in Utah. They're not going to sit through 1,000 names to get to that. And it allows us to keep motivation high. It allows us to keep the morale high on the floor. And if anyone's ever experienced a sales team, and I can say this because I'm a salesperson, but we are weak-minded people. So what happens is when if I have 10 calls and they all go terrible, and that 11th call is a great look, I'm probably not closing that deal because in my head, I'm thinking it's going to be like the other 10. And what I found with a lot of these outsourced teams, especially our two sales development teams, is they couldn't care less. They just literally are like, this is my job. Here's what I'm able to do. Here's what I've been told to do. And okay, so what? This person told me they don't want to talk to me. That's fine. On to the next. Whereas I think a lot of times in our world, in the actual employees, and for better or for worse, I'll say, is they're head cases, right? And I think that's where outsourcing allows us to allow our guys to be head cases and win but also allow them to, still be supplemented with things that are a little bit harder, so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's great. And, for all you kids sitting in Utah, I believe in you. So,
Yeah, we all do, man.
so let's shift gears a little bit. You have a podcast launching in February, is that right?
I do. Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I've actually launched a newsletter. It's actually a lot about what we talked about earlier
Right?
today. It's actually called Meaningful Momentum. And it's really kind of that's been my phrase is like everything that I do, every step forward needs to be meaningful from this point on in my life. And it's a newsletter that where I'm talking about just everything from how to find your purpose, this how to take that first step, really like what to do once you've taken that first step, things of that nature. And I've started this podcast to go along with that newsletter. I'm calling it Midweek Musings, and it'll come out every every Wednesday. So newsletter will come out Sunday, the podcast will come out Wednesday.
Love it.
And the whole thought process about it is just short, really quick tips, nuggets, and just stories and experiences on top of like challenges to make sure that people kind of understand what's in the newsletter. And my goal is really to build a community of people who are just trying to live intentionally, right? Executives that might be burnout or people that feel like they're doing the right things, but don't necessarily feel internally like they're on the right path. And just realize that, guess what? You're not alone. We've all felt it. We've all been there.
Yeah.
And, being around people that are living intentionally and with direction allows you to do the same thing.
You know what? That sounds like a magnificent opportunity, not only to bring value, but to really serve people who need it.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for tackling that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll say this, my career, the reason I am where I am is because I was given opportunities when I didn't deserve them. Right. I just happened to be in the right room, right time, around the right people, ask the right questions. And I've been given time by individuals that, quite honestly could have said no easily, but some 22-year-old kid hit them up and they said yes. And we had coffee and my life, changed forever. And back in 2019, I started a podcast called Bootstrapped Growth. I was bootstrapping a company and just literally gave everyone like the blueprint. Hey, this is what we did today. Here's how we marketed, sold. Here's step by step. Here's the discovery. And I grew that thing pretty massive. Massive for me. It was like 2,500 downloads a week. It wasn't crazy, but it was pretty big. And the biggest thing that I just said when I started that podcast is, you know, I wanted to build something that 22-year-old Ned needed, but I didn't have $10,000 to hire a mentor or anything like that.
right.
And it's kind of the same thing with this podcast at 32 and with this newsletter is, man, I really wish I had someone in my corner at 25 when I was starting to feel like, man, this money and these things aren't fulfilling me. I wish I had this. And that's really the whole goal of this is to give back and kind of pay it forward from all the people that have helped me throughout my career.
You know what, Ned? That's remarkable. And I'll tell you, I similarly have had experiences where I was given opportunities by people who believed in me when I didn't necessarily deserve that.
Yeah.
And, it was learning to maximize that opportunity. I remember, for example, when I was in India, my first year, there were some massive changes at the company, and a big decision was made about some of the work that had to happen. And my boss, who was the senior vice president that I reported to, called me and asked my opinion. And I gave him my opinion, and he thanked me and moved on. And actually, I don't know if it was because it was my opinion, but he did what I had suggested that we ought to do.
Yeah.
I always took the credit for that, but I went home and I was talking to my wife at the time and I told her what happened and she looked at me and she said, "Please tell me you didn't say I don't know." And I was like, "No, I did not say I don't know," because I knew, and
Yeah.
I had learned that, if you want a seat at the table, it's okay to use your voice. People do want to hear from you. They want to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, they wouldn't even let you in the room.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I will say I tell everyone that works with me, and any of my direct reports can tell you, is like I do not know everything. I know very little. Let's be real. I know very little. They're all boots on the ground. They're all experiencing things that maybe I'm not. And I try to be listening to calls and still being in things, but at this level, there are times where, hey, I don't know all of our sales reps, right? So when our VP comes to me and says, hey, we need to change these things in South Carolina because of X, Y, and Z, I listen, right? And I want everyone on my team to feel like they have a voice, because I can't make all the right decisions, right? Like we made a change to the way that we market probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now. And that change came from our weekly meeting that we have with marketing and sales and customer success, where it literally was our sales team talking to our marketing team, talking to our customer success team, talking through messaging and what's happening.
Right.
And it's like, I want that kind of collaboration inside of my organization, because otherwise it would just be decisions that I make, and that's boring, right? And what do I know?
It's boring, and some of those are going to be wrong.
Oh, I would say more than 80% of my decisions are wrong.
Which is not a shot at you. It's just the nature of things. This is one of the power of teams and a power of the voices of other people. And
Yeah.
when you're smart and you listen to those voices and you follow along and you take the counsel collectively, you come up with a significantly better decision.
Yeah. I told my VP of sales, I was like, I hired you for a reason. Like, you're here because you are a lot smarter than me in this exact role, what you're doing.
Yeah.
I want you to come to me. Like, I can look at the data all day.
Yeah.
Right. And I was on a podcast some time ago, and they were asking about like what a one-on-one looks like with my team. And my one-on-one with my team, they fill out a form beforehand. I look through it, blah, blah, blah. But they're strategic conversations. I'm not having them tell me that, like, hey, we had a 32% close rate in this market. We had a 48%. I can look at the data. What I expect when we have our one-on-ones is that they're coming to me with problems. We're discussing solutions, and we're exiting that call with an action plan to move forward. And so I think from that perspective, it is very much like, a lot of times what I'll see in leadership is very much getting into the minutia in front of people, that literally I could send a Loom video. We don't need to have an hour-long phone call for us to figure out why close rates are down. But what we do potentially need a 30-minute or hour-long phone call for is to strategically plan what that next week looks like, and to strategically plan what our training and our coaching and the day-to-day looks like. But if you're not in the data, you're never going to be able to realize that. But I also don't want someone to sit there and talk to me like, oh, 32%, 28%, this, that, and the other. It's like, dude, we can all read. Let's start to take action on what that data is telling us.
Right. That's awesome. Well, Ned, I think we'll close it off there. I'm really so grateful for your time today. It's been enlightening, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Scott. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So where can people find you?
Literally, the only place that I'm active is LinkedIn. So just Ned Arick on LinkedIn. I try to post daily, and I try to message people, as many people back as I can. But what I will tell people is, if you message me and I don't message you back, it's probably because it got lost. So if you really want to get a hold of me, just hit me back up. Like, just push it back to the top. So
awesome. Well, now you're going to have, 37,000 people that are going to be messaging because of all the listeners.
Shoot, bring it on. Let's go.
Absolutely. Right. But yeah, Ned, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody, this is Scott Smith. This has been the Outsourcing Blueprint with our guest, Ned Arick. And Ned, have a great weekend, man.
Hey, you do the same. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to the Outsourcing Blueprint. I'm your host, Scott Smith, and it's been an honor to share strategies, stories, and solutions to help you scale smarter and live the life you've dreamed of. If today's episode brought you value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to take their business to the next level. Your blueprint to success doesn't stop here. Follow me on LinkedIn or on YouTube at Akata Consulting for more tips, insights, and updates. Or to get the most value and gain access to exclusive content, group sessions, and even one-on-one time with me, join our free school community, the Outsourcing Blueprint. Remember, scaling your business is about working smarter, not harder. Together, we're building powerhouse teams to help you reclaim your time and create the freedom you deserve. Until next time, keep dreaming bold, building big, and outsourcing smarter. Let's go.